A long time ago, I was in the medieval city of Kampen, the Netherlands, where I had to do some research in the city archives. I was a student of history back then, sent to the archives to study what happened to a butcher in the early 18th century. I can't remember precisely what year that was. I believe the butcher in the early 18th century or something. But what I can remember is that whatever question I asked the ladies behind the counter in these city archives, they always had the correct documents within 40 seconds. It didn't matter what I asked. So after a little while, this disease started kicking in, this disease that I suffer from, that you can clearly see that I suffer from, and the disease is called curiosity. And I want to know, how does that work? How do you do that? The archives are immensely large. How on earth do you organize all that information in such a way that you can find it back within 40 seconds? So after a little while, when there was a coffee break, I went behind the counters, sneaked my way into the archives to find out how it works. And I didn't understand anything of it. All I saw was endless shelves and boxes with paper and strange numbers and catalog cards somewhere in the corner, and I got caught red-handed, of course. They saw that I was genuinely interested in how does an archive actually work, and they explained it to me, and I didn't understand anything of it. But the penny had dropped, and the penny taught me that the organization of unpublished information is endlessly more interesting than writing about it, which is what historians do. So I dropped my study of history, went to the Library Academy to study the finer art of information, how to find information, how to organize information, how to manage information, where is information stored, how do you judge information, what is good information, what is bad information, what exactly constitutes the concept of valid, relevant, reliable information. How do you solve information problems? How do you build on your information position? So I learned a lot about indexing systems, about controlled and uncontrolled vocabularies. I learned about bibliographies and catalogs. A catalog is basically the holdings of a library or a set of libraries. The largest catalog in the world, worldcat.org, a combined catalog of 10,000 libraries with millions and millions of records, all for free on the internet for you to look at. Bibliographies contains listings of all the publications published in any time. It doesn't matter, since the 16th century, of all the countries in the world. I can find information back, books, journals, maps, it doesn't matter, back until the 16th century or something, after the invention of book printing. I learned about Boolean logic, about building queries, I learned to use online library, online databases like LexisNexis, ESA, IRS systems, information retrieval systems. I learned how to interrogate dialogue and using this complex retrieval language where you can combine information from different databases to create a new database and then get the output in tables or something, organized any way you like. Remember ChatGPT, where you can do the same? I did the same 30 years ago, almost, all right? I'm not impressed. Or maybe I'm just jealous. So I learned about preserved context indexing system from Derek Austin, the best indexing system in the world, where you can catalog any information you like, and it doesn't matter how much. It is really thrilling if you suffer from this disease called curiosity, if you understand how to organize your own information so you can actually find it back. I hear people complain about information overload, information explosion. It's true, there's a lot of information out there. Or is it just documents out there, or just data and no information at all? I'm never bothered with that because I've learned how to handle that problem, and I'm very happy with it. I've never seen a public library from the inside, never. I only have worked for companies or governments to solve information problems. And that's what I do, that's what I was trained to do. So in 1990 or 1991 or something, can't remember precisely, I got a visit from the Dutch Defense Intelligence Service. They were impressed on how I combined stuff I found on the internet, which in 1991 was brand new. There was no Windows, it didn't exist. There was no World Wide Web, didn't exist either. Internet was basically FTP, Archie, Waze, Veronica, Gopher, to Gopher the world of internet. That's how I started using the internet. There were no books on how to explain or how to use the internet. I had a CD-ROM, Yggdrasil, plug and play. Remember the phrase, plug and play? Plug and pray, more like. It took me 2 days to get that stupid thing running, because nobody could explain to me how it worked. So the Intel service wanted me to come and establish for them an open source intelligence production capability. And open source intelligence is basically one of the ways that an intelligence service collects information. They have many, many channels through which they can get information. They have signals intelligence, human intelligence, measurement intelligence, and also something called open source intelligence, which basically is a systematic, planned, structured methodology to get good, reliable, validated, balanced, and evaluated information from open sources to analyze and produce intelligence reports. Intelligence reports that explain what's going on, that predict what will happen if we don't do something, that will compare different sources and get a balanced viewpoint toward a conflict or whatever you like. So that was a fascinating time working for the intelligence service and doing open source intelligence from 1990 until 2013. OSINT, open source intelligence, consists of 4 major steps that I would like to share with you. And at the end, I've got a small lesson for you to learn, a little message that I want to give to you, considering the current developments with all this slop information and the zombie internet that is now developing. The first step is requirement analysis and problem deconstruction, a very important step, knowing exactly what you're looking for. I'll give you an example. Research subject, to what extent will the state Orange Land, I'm making that up, Orange Land turn into a failed state considering internal problems? Most people would simply type in Orange Land and failed state and problems and blah, and then hammer on an enter button and then browse and browse and browse, isn't it? Usually the thing to do. Not going to work. What you do is, instead, you try to create sub-subjects from this particular research subject to find, first of all, what exactly is a failed state? What exactly are the properties or the characteristics of a failed state? What exactly are the indicators that could lead to a failed state? Let's say a failing economy, a financial crisis, religious conflict, all those things, mass unemployment, etc. You put these indicators in a list, and for each indicator, you're going to try to find evidence for or against it. To what extent is there a certain religious conflict or not? Get the idea? That's how you solve requirement analysis and problem deconstruction, to make sure that you know what you're looking for. The second step is sources. And the real Osintian is a source horse. They know about sources. They know about Europa publications. They know about Taylor and Francis. They know about the world of learning, a handbook, reference works, bibliographies. They know where you can find information on the deep web, on the dark web, whatever you call that. They know the techniques to analyze metadata from photographs. They know how to extract EXIF data. They know how to do reverse image searching. They know how to extract HTTP headers and to interpret that technique behind it. You know your sources, where to find dates, names, figures, etc. I do nothing else than investigate sources or make listings of bibliographies. The best book I've ever read in my life is Eugène Paulchy, Guide to Reference Books and Printed Catalogs. It's this thick, and it's just a listing of 10,000s of bibliographies of any subject you like. And I love books like this. That's what I read in my back garden with a cold herring and a red beer. Is this being recorded? Those are the books I read to know where it is. I make lists of interesting websites, sources on the World Wide Web. I make lists of techniques on how to get behind all that information. Sources. A little bit more difficult than you think. In the exams I give to students of my training programs, in the source exams, question number 13 in the list of quick reference questions that they have to solve within 30 minutes. Question 13 is my Pulitzer Prize question. And the question is, please look up, what will the weather be today? And half the class actually types that in some search engine instead of looking out of the bloody window. I don't get that at all. Source analysis, really important. The fourth step is query building. Boolean logic is the underlying technique of about every search engine there is. And or not, you know all these Boolean operators, don't you? In addition, also adjacency operators, proximity operators, and commercial databases have many, many more of those. Not really difficult to use, but very confusing to use. And I really advise you to study a little bit more in that so you get much better results, much better answers from your queries. I'll give you an example. An introductory exercise I give to students is to build a valid Boolean query, not Google, Boolean query, on, let's say, find me books about the Battle of Waterloo. And everybody is concentrating on this phrase, Battle of Waterloo, because that's 3 terms in one phrase. And you see people think we need to use an adjacency operator there to make sure that these 3 terms are in that order and nothing in between. First battle, then of, then Waterloo. And they produce something like books and operator, books and Battle of Waterloo. Sounds logical, doesn't it? How many books do you know with the word books in it? Because you're looking for it. You typed it in as a keyword, so the word books must be in the book. Doesn't make sense, does it? Use your brain. Analyze the questions, analyze the subjects first, and then you construct your query. In this case, Battle of Waterloo is a subject phrase, books as a format. The second question that I have then is, where do you find books? And people start thinking and thinking, well, ever heard of a library, perhaps? But anyway, sources. And the fourth one is, of course, validation of information, because there's so much junk information out there. And today, regardless what the other speakers said here about ChatGPT and all this AI stuff, they produce junk. The internet is now loaded with junk. It's called slop information. If you read The Guardian from 2 weeks ago, it's called slop information, information generated by chatbots, information that doesn't answer any questions, is just reading material, loads of ads absolutely nothing. And the internet is now loaded with that stuff, bombarded with that stuff. Many online booksellers now sell books that are completely generated by ChatGPT. I actually own a book, the 2024 Tourist Guide to Amsterdam, completely generated by a machine. And you can easily see that because it's full of nonsense. The book is this thick. Can you see that? It's this thick. Tourist Guide of Amsterdam of 60 pages? Isn't that boring? I'm born and raised in Amsterdam. It's not that bad. And the internet is loaded with that stuff. It becomes increasingly more difficult to get behind that. Which leads me to a little problem. There is so much information out there, and I love that, but hey, that's just me, an information freak. There is so much information out there that it is becoming increasingly difficult to find the correct information in the correct time, in the correct place. It is very difficult for you to get behind this wall to get primary information. The wall built by journalists, by newspapers, by the 8 o'clock news that select the information for you, and they select information for you, and they decide what information you will see. They decide what information you will not see. They decide the selection criteria, because you never know that. They decide the balanced viewpoint towards a conflict, and we all have this idea of which media is objective and which isn't. They have built this wall, this aggregator wall, to help you get access to. But at the same time, you never know if you get a balanced viewpoint towards the news. Because they decide that. They have built this wall for you, and you have to break through that wall. That's my objection against these chatbots for information retrieval. Fantastic invention, AI, and I really think it's of great benefit to our society. But for information retrieval, I don't see any point at all. I tried it every week, and the junk I get back is just amazing and good for some good André van Duin-like shows, stand-up comedian shows. It's really pointless. And that's my advice for you. Learn how information works. Please go to your librarian and ask for an in-depth interview, in-depth briefing on how exactly do online databases work? How does the world of information work? How do you get access to real information? How do you judge information? How do you get behind the search engines to get access to primary information? I want you to get back control of your information position. Don't be dependent on journalists, on magazines, on newspapers. Don't be dependent on everybody else who is deciding for you what you're going to see. You don't really think that you decide what Google is going to produce to you. You can type in any query you like. Google decides what you get to see. Nobody else, and certainly not you. And that is applicable to any search engine out there. And also all the little news outlets that you use today. I say to you, get back control, build your own information position, get behind that wall of aggregators, of third parties that try to hide you from the real information, learn how to validate information, learn the techniques behind it, learn the system, learn the standing operating procedures to judge photographs, to extract metadata for photographs so you can see, is this photograph really from this conflict or is it coming from something else? Learn the techniques behind photography, for instance, to find out, has this photograph been tampered with? Has it changed? Has somebody played with it to make you believe that somebody did something terrible? Or is it simply manipulation? Same applies to email. Learn how to study the headers of email so you know exactly where email comes from. Learn reverse image searching, learn steganography to find out, is information actually hidden in the photograph? You can do that using steganography. To hide pictures in other pictures. For instance, if old, bald men with white beards go to Thailand, so-called for a cultural holiday. Sure. Child pornography. It comes back with 5,000 pictures, all of this particular gentleman for the church, behind the church, next to the church. In reality, these pictures hide child pornography in those pictures, and you can get those out with steganography. Learn the techniques, learn the basics of the global information landscape, and I can assure you, your information position will be a hell of a lot better. That's what I call librarianship. Let's do OSINT. Thank you very much for listening.